I kind of faked you guys out because we'll get to the Bible in a second. But I'm going to ask you guys to do something that I don't think we've ever done in here. So bear with me. I'm going to have you guys close your eyes. Trust me, I'm not going to pull a prank on you or anything. So I'm going to have you guys picture something. I'm a visual person, so this helps me. But I think it might help some of you that are visual learners. So just eyes closed, and then listen carefully as I describe this to you. So picture yourself in a dark, desolate valley. There's no plants around you, no trees, no light, no life. There's no hope. One day, you're walking and you come across two pathways. To your right side, you look and you notice a bumpy path. If you take that path, you'll have to overcome some potholes and bumps on the way. But the closer you stare down that path, you look close and you see more light in the distance. That light gives you a curious feeling. As you stare at it, it gives you this warm feeling, a positive feeling, hope. You start to squint your eyes and you see more closely that there are plants growing. You see flowers, purple, blue, yellow, and you begin to notice more little plants getting ready to flourish. You start to understand that it may not always be easy, but something in you desires to reach that light. Something inside of you longs for the beauty that comes with that path. Now, you look to your left side, the other path. It's nice, it's got a nice brand new paved road. It looks easy to walk on. But as you look closer, you begin to notice patches of quicksand. As you stare down at that path, you start to feel an uneasiness. Something's off. There's no light, no hope. You look further into the distance and you're searching for that light you saw on the other path. But all you can spot is darkness. Now you just stand there, trying to make a decision, trying to understand what you've seen, and you wonder, what path should I take? All right, now you can open your eyes. Hold on to that picture. It might look different in everyone's heads, but just hold on to it, store it in the back of your head. We're going to come back to that. But while we wait on that, tonight we're going to be focusing on the book of Esther. And in the book of Esther, it's actually interesting because you don't hear God mentioned once in the book of Esther. There's different books of the Bible you hear, God said this, God spoke to this person, God did this, whatever. God is mentioned in other books of the Bible, but Esther, he's not mentioned. But the author of Esther wrote this book so the readers, us, are able to look more closely at the story and try to see where God is still working, even though he's not mentioned. And I share that because tonight I'm talking about such a time as this. And I'm going to talk about storms and circumstances that come our way. And I think it's very easy for us in the midst of storms to feel like we don't see God, feel like we don't hear him. But the book of Esther is just an example of that, of how he's still working, even though you may not see it at first glance. If you look more closely, he's there all along. So tonight, as I talk about different storms, either there's three different types of people in here. Either you've gone through a storm before in your life, you're in one right now, or you will experience one at some point. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but life is life, and it's not all happy sunshine and rainbows. So, like I said, my title is Such a Time as This. And you guys are gonna see me kind of dig into that phrase a little deeper. But right now I want to give you a little bit of backstory on what we're about to read, because we're jumping ahead a couple chapters in Esther. So where we're at in Esther, we're in a place called Susa, which is the capital of Persia. Some of you nerds may like to know that location. Some of you don't care at all. And you're like, I don't know why you even told me that. But do with that information what you will. At the time in Persia, Susa, the king ruling was King Xerxes. And basically at this time, he's searching for a new queen. So it's kind of like an episode of The Bachelor. He's got a bunch of ladies lined up, trying to figure out who's going to be his next queen. The next queen who's going to stand beside him and be with him. And one of those ladies in that line is Esther, who we're going to focus on today. Now, Esther was a Jew, and her cousin Mordecai was also a Jew. And they're very close, and you'll hear me mention both Mordecai and Esther a lot. But Mordecai tells Esther to hide her identity of being a Jew from the king. So Esther later on becomes queen, and Mordecai becomes a palace official. And then in chapter 3, which we're going to read some of that in a second, there's a guy named Haman that comes into the story. And Haman is named by the king the most powerful palace official. So basically what this means is that all the other palace officials have to just bow down to him as he walks by, as Haman walks by. And one day, Mordecai, Esther's cousin, the palace official, refuses to bow down to Haman. And this is a problem. Haman's got power and authority, and you don't bow down to him, that's an issue. So that's our big storm in this story, because Haman decides, you know what, Mordecai didn't obey me, he didn't show me the power that I have, he didn't bow down, so now I'm going to kill all the Jews. He really went from 0 to 10 with that, but at this time it's a big deal. If there's someone powerful in the room, you bow down to them. So Haman plots to kill all the Jews, and that's where we're going to start in our reading today. Esther chapter 3, verse 13. So it says, dispatches were sent by swift messengers into all the provinces of the empire, giving the order that all Jews, young and old, including women and children, must be killed, slaughtered, and annihilated on a single day. So pretty aggressive, pretty intense decree made by Haman. And so this decree has now been made. The king signs off on it. It's official. It's happening. You can't take this away now. It's going to happen no matter what. So in the NLT, if you keep reading, it says that on March 7th of the following year, all Jews will be killed in one day. So all the Jews have 11 months to prepare for this. And then we're going to hop over to Esther chapter 4, verse 1 through 3. And this says, when Mordecai learned about all that had been done, he tore his clothes, put on burlap and ashes, and went out into the city, crying with a loud and bitter wail. He went as far as the gate of the palace, for no one was allowed to enter the palace gate while wearing clothes of mourning. And as news of the king's decree reached all the provinces, there was a great mourning among the Jews. They fasted, wept, and wailed, and many people lay in burlap and ashes. So I'm going to stop right there. In this moment, you see all the Jews in a place of mourning. They are in the thick of the storm. They feel the weight of what's coming. They know it's going to happen. And all they can do is mourn. But something I want to point out is that they fasted. So then in verse 10, it says, Then Esther told Hathach to go back and relay this message to Mordecai. All the king's officials and even the people in the provinces know that anyone who appears before the king in his inner court without being invited is doomed to die, unless the king holds out his gold scepter. And the king has not called me to come to him for 30 days. So Hathach gave Esther's message to Mordecai. Mordecai sent this reply to Esther, Don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace, you will escape when all other Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place. But you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for just such a time as this. Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, Go and gather together all the Jews of Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will do the same. And then, though it is against the law, I will go in to see the king. If I must die, I must die. So there's a lot to unpack from that scripture. But my big focus for this message is what Mordecai says to Esther. He says, Who knows if perhaps you were made for just such a time as this? So Esther is in a place where she has a life or death situation. She's got two choices. Either not say a word to the king and allow all the Jews to die, or talk to the king, tell her she's a Jew and risk her own death. Esther and the people are in a major storm right now, but she has the choice to either sit back or to take a stand. So my first point tonight is change your focus. In Hebrews 12:1-2, it says, Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. So that verse I had just last minute came across a few days ago. I was trying to finalize my points for today, and I came across that verse, and that's what sparked point number 1 for me, change your focus. And I love in Hebrews where it says that, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus. So to be able to get through a storm, to be able to endure the race that we have ahead, the storms, the circumstances around us, we must keep our eyes focused on Jesus if we want to make it through. And that takes me back to that image I had you guys picture. To be able to make it through the bumps in the road, the potholes of that path where there's hope, you have to keep your eyes on Jesus. You can't get distracted about what's around you. You can't get distracted about the storm that you're going through, or everything's falling apart. I don't know what's going to happen. What if this? What if that? I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know what God's going to do. I don't know who's going to leave or who's going to come into my life. Am I going to like him? Am I not? What is God going to do? You have to change your perspective from all those worries, all those fears, and you have to look to the Lord. You have to change your focus. Mordecai and Esther were in a season of a storm. Their people are waiting for their death. They all know it's coming. But the prime example of how they changed their focus from the storm to the Lord is how they fasted and prayed. They didn't just stay in a time of mourning. They didn't just sit there and say, man, this sucks. We're all going to die. I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I don't know where to go. I don't know about this. They didn't have all the answers, but they went to the Lord. And they put their focus on God. So when you are in a season of darkness, whether you're in one right now, or you've been in one, or eventually you will be in one, as much as I hate to say it, you have a choice to make. You can either sit back, not do anything. You cannot try to grow. You can choose to not seek after the Lord. You can sit on your butt and cry and be like, this sucks. I don't know if I can say that. Okay. You can be upset about it. Or you can change your focus from the bad to the hope that we have in Jesus. So, raise your hand if you like practicals. You like to be able to apply things to your life. Me too. For years, I would listen to messages like at different events and stuff, and I'd be like, this is great, I love this. But I'd walk away and not apply it to my life because I didn't know how. I was like, okay, this is cool, I like this, I really like this. But how do I practically apply it to my life? So right now, for you practical people, what this looks like, what it looks like to change your focus and put it on Jesus, is choosing to pray and be in your word. It's as simple as that. You have to make the choice to say, okay, I'm in the midst of a storm, and this is terrible. But I'm going to choose to read my word, even though I don't feel like it, even though it feels pointless, even though I don't even think I can see God or hear him right now. You have to make the choice. No one's forcing you to choose. It's all in you. You make that choice. It's going to be a lot harder if you choose to not press into the Lord and you choose to not put your focus on the Lord. It's going to be very hard to get through a storm if your focus isn't on him. When you change your focus, God will change your future. Point number 2, take a stand. When you put your focus on God, like I said, you can't sit back. You can't wait for the storm to be over. You can't cry to God, Lord, let it be done. Can it be over? I've prayed that a lot, especially when I was immature in my faith. I was like, man, I don't like this. God, let it quickly pass by. But I learned over time that sometimes those storms don't just disappear because God's trying to teach me something in the midst of it. Esther makes a bold statement at the end of that passage I had you guys read. If I must die, I must die. And I truly believe that when you shift your focus onto the Lord, like they did, they said they were going to fast and they were going to pray for 3 days. When you shift your focus onto the Lord, it instills a boldness in you to be able to take a stand, take a leap of faith and say, okay, God, whatever happens, happens. I know you've got it. I know you have it. Even though it's so hard to say those words right now, I know you have it. When we realize that God has made us for such a time as this, no storm could get in the way of that. When you realize what can happen when your focus changes to just God, and when you decide to stand up and walk in faith towards the Lord, fear will bow and nothing will control you other than the Lord. I know you guys keep hearing me say that phrase, such a time as this, such a time as this. But I really want you guys to apply that to your life. But I need you guys to really lock it in right now. Can you guys lean in towards me? I need you guys to go like this. And really hear what I'm about to say, okay? Stay like that, stay like that. Don't move back, don't get comfortable. You need to know that God has a plan the storm you may be in. He has you in here listening to this word right now for such a time. He has you at that Christian co-op or homeschool for such a time. He has you at Battle Creek Central, Penfield, Lakeview, Harbor for such a time as now. You were made for this. You were made for the school that you're at. Whether you like it or not, God always knew you were going to be there. You were made for the family that's in your life. You were made to walk in boldness in the midst of storms. It's easy for us to come face to face with a trial and just want to give up. Many, many times I've wanted to give up. I feel like I have an easy personality that wants to give up, but at the same time I'm too stubborn to ever really commit. It's easy for your thoughts in the midst of storms to say, I'm not cut out for this. I don't think I can do anything in this school. I don't think I can make an impact. All these kids say they're Christians. Well, there's nothing I can do. But I promise you, when you put your hope in Jesus, we are able to speak up against the trial we're in, and we're able to speak up and pray in the midst of pain. So, that picture I had you guys imagine, we're coming back to that now. I had you guys try to visualize the two choices you can make when you're in a dark valley, when you're in a storm, and you feel like you can't get out, when it feels like those mountains are way too high to climb. The mountains around you, you're like, I don't know if I'm ever going to make it out of here. You have two choices to make. The path on the left that looks easy, that looks like it'd be easy to walk on, it's appealing, but one where you're left feeling hopeless and alone and stuck. Or you can choose that path, that second path on your right, the one where it's gonna be tough, but there's a hope you can rely on. There's a hope, and that hope is Jesus. I know many of you have heard that so many times. Your hope is in Jesus. Your hope is in Jesus. But I mean it, and I need you guys to understand that your hope is in Jesus. No matter what you're going through, no matter the storm that you may face, are facing, or did face, God is your only hope. You get to choose the path you take. No one's going to force you. I know many times it looks appealing to take that easy path. Esther could have ignored Mordecai. She could have chosen to say, I don't want to risk dying, so I'm not even going to take a chance. But she knew she was made for such a time. She knew that God had a perfect plan. She knew she had to be obedient. At some point in your life, you're going to walk through a time of pain. But you must choose to believe that God has a perfect plan. That He has your best interest in mind, even when you don't see it. The only way you're going to make it through that valley is by making it a priority to face your eyes on Jesus and say, God, I know there's a lot happening around me right now, but the only way I'll make it through is with you. So tonight, I want you guys to feel empowered. I want you to have that revelation of what it looks like to go through a tough season with your focus on God. what she just said. I want you guys to leave here and know that you were made for such a time as this. You guys can go ahead and stand up. If you didn't know, I graduated from Harper last year. I was in public school all my life. And something I don't necessarily regret, because I know God knew it was going to happen all along, but sometimes I do wish that I had had that realization a lot sooner in my life, that God made me for Harper Creek at that time for a reason. I didn't come to that realization until about junior, senior year. I've been in public school since kindergarten, and it took me that long to realize. But what I want you guys to do tonight is realize that today, that you were made for the school you're at. You were made to be at this church. You were made to be in the family that you're in, no matter how chaotic and messed up it may be, or no matter how great your family may be. I don't want you guys to miss what God is trying to do in your school. You have to start fixing your focus on God and trusting Him and trusting that you're at the school you're at for a reason. You're here right now for a reason. So for tonight's altar call, I don't want you guys to come up to the altar. I don't want you guys to go to a leader. But I feel like you guys need to just take a moment, either in your seats, around the room, and you need to take a moment to write down and identify what season you're in right now. And then ask God, what is He calling you to do right now? And even if it helps, you can ask God, what are you calling me to in my home right now? What are you calling me to in my church right now? What are you calling me to in my school right now? I know that when life gets tough, it's easy to lose focus. So when you write down what God speaks to you, it helps you refer back to it. So if you have a phone or a notebook or a journal, or you can ask for paper and a pen for a friend if they have some. I want you to try to write down what God speaks to you tonight. And I don't want you to lose that paper. I want you to hold on to that. Because this is your reminder tonight to not lose focus on